Yeah. Yeah, I found out some new things about myself. Apparently, I'm gay. Apparently, I hate women, and apparently, I've been a fake therapist for the last 10 years. Nah, I think it's funny. I'm actually a real therapist. I actually did get a master's. I actually did get my license. I still have one as of now. I know some of y'all are looking really hard to see if how I can lose that, and maybe lose my job, or maybe lose my credentials in some way. But in order to lose it, that means I must have had it. So yeah, as of now, I still have it. But now I've been rocking in the space of mental health for a little over a decade. Worked for prisons, for schools, and now for the largest mental health nonprofit in the city of Philadelphia.
Excellent, man. Excellent resume, man. And it's sad that people are coming to destroy you when you're simply just trying to speak the truth.
Hmm.
And I think what people fear mostly uh, is that your truths or your position is coming from expertise, not just the typical opinion that most people have in this space. Your position is actually coming from, it's backed by studies. You have your own uh, realm of material that you can gather a lot of these points and substantiate from, rather than just what everybody else typically do, just jump on Google. Now you
Hmm.
actually out here in the trenches dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people in the space that have these issues.
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is. I knew I've lived. I mean, I'm on the internet like everybody else, so I've seen what happens whenever someone speaks out for good or bad reasons. I know that there's going to be two camps: those that huddle behind you and say we like what this message is, and then those who viscerally want to react poorly to it. In this scenario, I have a few agendas in mind, and things that I haven't said to my audience yet on my platform. But when I do, I'll let people know a lot more of what I'm trying to do and why. But the main focus is getting men and women, in each of us, to better understand each other, and to learn things that potentially we didn't really realize.
I appreciate that. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it because I don't like to hold up. You know what I'm saying? I got some questions for you,
Mm,
and I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing them. But we're gonna jump into masculinity and double standards. So my
yeah.
question to you is, and we're talking about toxic masculinity. Why
Mm.
is it why is it socially acceptable for women to shame toxic masculinity, but not for men to challenge toxic femininity?
Mm. So for starters, I actually will say one of my main reasons for doing this is to take back control of our lexicon and our language and our words and our speech. I think that there's been a group that's been pretty nefarious and very effective of being able to control what we're allowed to say publicly in workspaces and just even amongst our friends and family. The starting point, this concept of toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, it does not exist, and I'm rocking against that concept because it's an oxymoron. In order for something to be masculine and in order for something to be feminine, these are considered positive attributes. In order to protect, in order to provide, in order to nurture, and in order to care, those are the signs, and reflections of somebody that's being masculine and or being feminine. These are positive things. So individuals that will take something that is positive and call it a toxic version of it, there's no such thing. If anything, that's like saying a stupid genius. Like either they're stupid or they're a genius. Toxic is just what human beings can be, men or women. But when they're being toxic, they're not being masculine. When they're being toxic, they're not being feminine. So just even that concept alone is like I'm not buying that narrative no more. I'm not buying that lexicon. I'm not using those words. Toxic masculinity and toxic femininity do not exist. They do not go hand in hand. Now, if you're asking why is it socially acceptable for people to point out men's bad behaviors versus why it is that it seems like we can't challenge women's bad behaviors, well, the starting point is because the extreme third and fourth wing feminists pretty much have been running the zeitgeist of society for quite a while in almost every major area of influence.
What is
School.
that? Zeitgeist. What does that mean?
Um, Actually, I'll use a better word. They are running they've pretty much built the mental matrix of what we're allowed to do in society, what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to do, how we're allowed to feel, and even what we're allowed to believe in. So the third and fourth wing feminists have become so powerful and so effective. Whenever people point out things that women are doing that's wrong, they already have their go-to words to kind of shut you down, shame you. And if that's not enough, they'll go through the long list of things. You'll start recognizing the pattern. They'll start with calling you a misogynist. They'll start coming for your sexuality. Then they'll start coming for your relationship if you have one. Then they'll start trying to go in your past and see who you've been with and to see if they could potentially expose you. Then, if that's not enough to shut you down, then they want to find out what your credentials are. Then they're going to try to destabilize you in terms of economically. And the hope and goal is until you believe what we believe and say what we say, we will do all we can to break you until you fall back in line of submission. Their view is very simple. They've shifted from believing that the patriarchy was something that centered primarily around men, it was male centered. And they moved men out of there. Instead, you know what? They're centered both of us. They said, no, 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 no. Now it's our. We want things to be centered around female viewpoints, female communication, female styles of communication, and female understandings of how to view these things. You live in a functional cultural matriarchy like that. Whenever you point out anything that women are doing wrong, now the impulse is not they could actually be doing something wrong. The impulse is he hates women. So I'm trying to get the audience now to start to catch what's been going on and what's been dominating our fields for the last two generations. It was creeping in the college levels, and it's seeped all the way down to the elementary levels. It's in the HR departments. It's everywhere. We're so deep in it that it's almost like trying to see air. It's everywhere. So my goal is actually not to hate women or to prop men and say men need to be back in the center role. My job is actually to get us to a place where we can appropriately identify good and bad behaviors within both sexes and not allow those that only want to focus on things being negative that exists within the male population. I'm one of those people that's like, no, we got to get somewhere back in the middle because if we swing from everything's about men to now everything's about women, the goal of correcting this stuff is not to swing back to everything's about men again. My belief is that that issue is probably how we ended up with this issue. So my lens is there is toxic men, there is toxic women, and if and when people, when you point it out, people try to trick you into saying, "Well, you can't say that because do you hate women or are you misogynist or so women aren't allowed to this or no, 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 no. Either what you're doing is right or wrong, and your gender is secondary to what the primary issue is." And leave it at that. And if they won't reconcile that, if they won't accept that, you run as far as you can away from people like that. And there are men and women that espouse that form of feminism where women are now central, where women are now held to a level where they're beyond reproach and can't be corrected. I'm I'm basically shaking the paradigm and kind of messing with the algorithm a little bit in hopes to kind of get us to a much more balanced view.
Ah, that's excellent because, and that's what I kind of thought. That it's crazy that you say that the reason why they're pushing it all the way to, making everything centered around feelings and catering to the women is because the problem used to be, okay, everything should be circled and centered around the men. And instead of just shifting the middle where it's even, everything over to our side
Yeah.
and then push somebody to look the other way while we're and try to come in, we're gonna tear him down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is
That's deep.
that's it. So and what you just said is a key part where if you want to know whether the woman in front of you, where she is on that spectrum between centralizing men, centralizing women, or somewhere in the middle, point out something that is a primary benefit to women at the end of men, see what her response is. And once you know this and send it out, you'll realize how much energy to expend in interactions and exchanges with them. So when I said what I said in that interview with the ladies on my truth, sharing my truth podcast, listing the laundry list of things that primarily in men, and it's usually a benefit to women. The women that said we don't care, that's y'all issue. There's nothing talking about paternity fraud. What's the purpose of changing that? Now you know where she is. Now you're learning sooner where they stand. Now all you got to do is respond accordingly. What? You got it. Because now you know she's not at a place of seeing the value of your humanity as a man. She's a spot where because of Marxism, because of what I was taught, because of what I was indoctrinated or to believe, you women can't point out wrong with me or women.
You like to think that the only one who had this position were women who were projecting had traumatic experiences, and it
Hmm.
impacted their makeup and how they see things. But then I started to learn that it's not just those women, it's actually women that are coming out learning this
Hmm.
stuff, and embracing it, and they never even try to see who they really are. But then
Hmm.
they just learn the position because of perhaps maybe who they inspired by.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of grown adults believe that those women were the blue haired women with, always protesting
Yeah,
something. And what we realized and turned out was like, no, there's aspects of this belief system that's kind of ingrained in a lot of us. Men, boys, and girls are being taught to this way. And for an example, when you're a really, really, really young boy, and the first you have a negative physical relation with a girl, where she puts her hands on you, she pushes you, and you go to retaliate, what they teach you? Don't put your hands on
put
her.
hands on a woman.
All right. The issue with it, that's right. Don't do it. But the issue is that sides have been taught one side's allowed to be a little bit more of an aggressor in this area, and the other side has to be just accept and take it. Now, when this boy and girl grows up, extrapolate that over society. You now have a group that functionally feels you can't say this to me. You can't ask this for me. Standards for what I got to bring to the table? No, that's misogynistic. It's something like that as it goes and expand the various domains of our life, you can start to see all over the place. And once you get this toxicity stuff, just get it through. There's good people and bad people. And there is a population that includes a small percentage of men and a huge percentage of women that functionally believe only one side is evil.
That's crazy. Now it helps a little bit more later. If you're teaching these things, you're teaching these, we didn't compensate for the fact that overlap in areas. Like if you're teaching a man to stick it on the chin, directly, you might be teaching that young man when he becomes an adult, not boundaries, take respect, accept
Mhm.
manipulation. All these things that can derive from that very teaching
Mhm.
didn't come forward. And they
Yeah.
end up in your office
Mhm.
and you're trying to plead with them on you. Now, make sure you download 2 copies of my ebook at the top of the description, and I'll see you guys on the next one.